go to the Telegraph and just we'll get back to England. We'll go to Manchester United for a second. The piece at the bottom of the screen by Mark McGrath. Ratcliffe to ditch role of manager for head coach with Omar Barada. Dan Ashworth coming in, and he's going to be head coach, not manager, and the coach is going to be focused at Carrington. How does this change the picture, particularly for Erik ten Hag, if he is incumbent beyond the summer? It means he's going to have less powers, isn't he?
You know what? I find this story absolutely fascinating. It was the one thing that jumped out from the Jim Ratcliffe media interviews, a month ago when his co-takeover was complete. The one thing that stood out from all the words he said in those interviews down in his office in Knightsbridge was the fact that he says we, being the chief executive, the sporting director, the recruitment figures, presumably Sir Dave Brailsford, we will decide what Manchester United's style of play is, and the coach will have to play that style of play. I found that quite remarkable. When he puts up, for example, Liverpool and Manchester City as the benchmarks, who decides the style of play for Liverpool and Manchester City? It's Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. Imagine trying to tell Pep imagine a CEO or a sporting director telling Pep how he wants the team to play football. I just find it fascinating. And when we talk about will ten Hag, myself and Martyn have talked about will ten Hag be, will he stay or will he be sacked? Will he want to stay if that is the case? What elite coach would want to stay if he was being told how to play? I think it's going to be fascinating, because I think we can all gather that as much as Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it's been a fascinating takeover, it's also going to be extremely intriguing to see how hands-on Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada, Sir Dale Brailsford, Dan Ashworth, when he lands, how hands-on they're going to be and how that will affect the new manager. And that's why Gareth Southgate, some people think, would be a good fit, because I think he would quite buy into that idea of working with a so-called football operation.
Martyn, I wonder what your take is. I just wonder, from the fans' perspective, the media's perspective as well, our perspective, should we now put less judgment on coaches and managers? Should we start looking at sporting directors? Is the complexion of the game changing that much? Should they carry the can sometimes as well for failure?
I mean, some clubs are sort of moving towards that model, English clubs. I still think that actually the manager having more control, so he's has a big input on transfers. I think it's very difficult to ditch that altogether. I mean, I think Arteta, when he went to Arsenal, he was head coach, but then he actually became manager, and he's got the responsibility for analysis, for transfers as well. And I think, especially if you're at a big club like Manchester United, it's very difficult to relinquish that sort of control. So Jim Ratcliffe, he can find a coach that he plays in the right style, because you know which coaches do and which ones don't. So that can be sorted out. But for them not to have any say over players, or little say, and just basically work on the training ground, I think that's a sea change, and I'm not sure it's that easy to bring in.